now.
Good. I declare this meeting of the Morgan Spring Bay Council held on Tuesday, the 23rd of January 2024, open at 2:01 p.m.
The Morgan Spring Bay Council acknowledges the traditional owners of our region and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present.
Thank you. Welcome to this meeting of the Morgan Spring Bay Council. All councillors are present. Agenda item 1.2, there are therefore no apologies, and at this section there is no request for leave of absence. In attendance today in the chamber we have the General Manager, Mr. Greg Ingham, the Director of Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Peter Porch, the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Alex Woodward, and our Executive Officer, Mrs. Jasmine Kerr. Agenda item 1.4 is late reports. General Manager, I understand there is a late report to be received.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, item 8.6 is a late report.
Thank you. Have a motion?
I'll move that council accepts the late agenda report, request for event support, East Coast Harvest Odyssey Echo as late agenda item 8.6.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 1.5 is the declaration of interest or conflict, as Mayor and our request elected members to indicate whether they have any interest personally or via a close associate as defined in section 49 of the Local Government Act 1993, or 2, any conflict as described in Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors in any item included in the agenda. No conflicts, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have a
Councillor Young, yes?
I have
I think it
conflict,
I think
but I'm not sure if it's in the open agenda.
I believe it might be in the confidential agenda, Councillor Young, so we can do with that a little bit later. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 2 is the confirmation of minutes. 2.1, the ordinary meeting of council on the 12th of December. There is a recommendation on page 6. Councillor Edwards.
That the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on 12th of December 2023 at 2 p.m. be confirmed as true and correct.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you. The motion. All those in favour? Those against? Protocol dictates that if the motion's moved, councillor, that you can accept the motion. You can accept the minutes as believe.
Yes.
General Manager.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2.2 is the date and purpose of meeting of workshops held. There is a recommendation on page 7. Deputy Mayor.
I'll move that council notes the information.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Edwards, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 2.3 is the audit panel minutes. There is a recommendation on page 9. Mr. Churchill, thank you.
I move that council receives and notes the attached minutes of the Morgan Spring Bay Council audit panel meeting held on the 28th of November 2023.
Seconder, Councillor Young, thank you. Councillor Churchill, as a member of the audit panel, do you wish to make any comment on your motion?
Yes, I do. Please, I just need to look up something in the attachment. Oh yeah, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the meeting point 5 from the minutes and external audit financial statements 2022-23, and it is dot point 5 under 5B, and it mentions there that KPMG's overall assessment of the audit, this is the external audit done for council, was that it was effective, timely documentation of high level and generally very happy with the engagement and results. So I'd just like to thank our finance staff and the members of the audit panel involved, especially our chair and our external member, for the work that they've put into that achievement.
Thank you. Jerry Mayer, so the other member of the audit panel, do you wish to make any?
No, I agree with what councillor Churchill.
Thank you.
Just
Any
had to say.
questions for, any questions in relation to the minutes?
Well, I was just going to seek the right to make a comment about matter that councillor Churchill raised.
Certainly, councillor Young.
It's very nice to see that this council is still on the straight and narrow. Better than that. We all deserve to be patted on the back.
I couldn't agree more, Mr. Councillor Young. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 3.1 is questions on notice. I note there have been none submitted. And this questions without notice is 3.2. General Manager,
Madam Mayor, no questions.
no
without notice.
questions. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 4 is the Planning Authority section. There are new reports this month. 5.1 is the financial reports. There is a recommendation on page 13. Deputy Mayor, thank you.
I'll move that council receives and notes the financial reports as attached to this report for the period in December 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second of Councillor McQueenie? Thank you. Questions or comments on the financial reports? View the documents presented. As usual, it is a very comprehensive report. No questions? Councillor Woods?
Thank you. Where are we, through you to General Manager, where are we with the helipad Swansea Emergency Services?
Thank you, councillor, for your question. If you don't mind, we could deal with that when we're talking about the infrastructure information report.
Yep.
The director does have some information in regards to that. So if you don't mind, we can deal with it then.
Yep, no worries at all.
And any other questions? General Manager, perhaps the director could give me some information around the salt works toilet, which seems to be my my favourite subject. But perhaps not now. We can do it in your infrastructure report if you prefer, Mr. Port. I'm happy for you to take it on notice then. Lovely, thank you. If there's no other questions in relation to the finances, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Under item 6 is our section 24 committees. We have minutes from the Fisher-Note Memorial Hall. There is a recommendation on page 17. Councillor Edwards.
That the minutes of the Fisher-Note Memorial Hall Committee meeting held on 14th of September 2023 be received and noticed.
Is there a seconder? Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Unanimously, thank you. Agenda item 7 is the information reports. 7.1 is the Director Works and Infrastructure report. There is a recommendation on page 22. Councillor Woods.
Thank you. I'll move that council notes the information.
For a seconder. Councillor Edwards. Thank you. Now we have a couple of questions that have been asked, Mr. Port. So would you, through you, with your permission, General Manager, if I can go straight to Mr. Port and have him deal with those two questions and then any other questions that councillors might have.
Madam Chair, first of all, to the helipad. The council will be aware that there were a number of issues raised by the neighbour. Some of those have resulted in other agencies of state government doing investigation on one thing or another. We're currently waiting the result of an NRE report, which was carried out early last year. We provided some survey of the site and things like that to facilitate that report. once we have that report, we intend to then proceed to further design, enable the development application. We've looked at other land and spoken with other landholders nearby to see if there is opportunity for an site. Those discussions have resulted in an offering, but it's not necessarily a better site than we have in terms of flooding. So at this stage, we look through to for site. To the salt works, the MAST did an initial plan for the location and got some consultation around that and feedback, which resulted in a review of that plan. That plan is now out being consulted on. It has it's a slightly different footprint and rearrangement of the site, following on from the feedback they got from the first iteration. We had a request for comments in relation to aspects of the toilet block proposed for there last week. We're providing feedback, feedback to them from that. So progressing through MAST. I haven't heard yet that that Parks have completed their own internal RAA assessment for the site, but obviously I guess if there's any change to that, as there has been, then that means progress. That process will continue.
It's just my concern sits around the funding for it, Mr. Porch, and that it's this energy infrastructure number 3. And I'm just wondering where we're at in that process. Have we had to apply for extension of time in relation to that grant money, or are we still within the proper timeframes?
For a number of the projects in all of those programs, we've had to generally apply extension of because again, my concern is around the importance of this particular infrastructure for the aquaculture industry in that area. And so, you know, if we get it finalised, it would be great. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Councillor Edwards and then Councillor McLeany. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of different ones. I noted that with the reseals in both Orford and Triton Road, so the IGAs, we had some issues with it lifting. Said that was being addressed, but I noticed outside the Orford IGA the other day, it was very tacky. I don't know what the solution or answer to that is. The next thing was the shower at Spring Beach toilets. It had some very, very good feedback about the upgrade of the toilets from people down there. They're very happy, but the shower going in there would be hugely popular. The third one is I had queries this morning from Coles Bay. They said you can't park anywhere for a caravan or camper, which is, they're not distressed about that, but no Blackwater facilities. Now, I don't know whether it's council or the government or who has to front up, or a mixture of both, but you would think that with some sort of Blackwater receptacle, it would also help the potential pollution going into the swimming areas around Calf Bay, because the locals tell me currently everything's dumped in the bush, and so it's not really a great setup. So, but like I said, I'm not putting it on council, but we need to be attacking the appropriate people, which I am doing as well, to try and get funding to solve this issue.
The manager and Mr. Porter, I think we've had some discussions around this area with authorities in terms of the Blackwater.
Yes, we have, Madam Mayor.
I think, and I've just had some recent correspondence with the Fraser Action Incorporated Group, FAR, about this matter. There's certainly concerns have been raised about Councillor Edwards' point, people doing the wrong thing and dumping black water in the roadside or in the. Whilst we don't have any evidence to support, and we certainly haven't had any customer complaints on our register, it's certainly something that we need to be cognizant of. The correspondence to date with, and also when I say cognizant of, working with the stakeholders, there's potentially an opportunity with the Gateway development to work with Parks and Wildlife and others on improving the situation at Coles Bay. In saying that, the biggest challenge I think going forward is going to be the fact that Coles Bay is not reticulated, and the FAR did make reference, reticulated sewerage, the FAR did make reference to other townships where we do have public dump point facilities. The only difference being, of course, that those townships are reticulated, and it's far easier for the waste to go straight into the system, as opposed to having some sort of storage and extraction, etc. So we'll continue to try and explore opportunities in this space for Coles Bay, even in the absence of reticulation at this stage.
I can just add, I have brought it up with Minister of Tourism, Minister of Parks and Minister of Health. They're all aware and will be continued to be made aware, and they recognise that ongoing problem. So hopefully the locals suggested to me, some of the locals, but down at the Freycinet Golf Course would be a very good place to put it, because there's already a camping ground there. It could be a win-win. And I don't know if there's an opportunity to recirculate some of the waste product back onto through sprinklers. I don't know. It might be an option.
I think the important thing for that it is very much on radar.
Yeah.
Because we are aware of the environmental issues and the problems with in the tourism areas, tourism space.
I will add, they don't expect council to come in there and pay for it. They're being very nice about it.
I think, Madam Mayor, too, it's worth mentioning, this is a good example of another example in our municipality of the negative impacts of increased tourism.
Yep.
We have great positive impacts and outcomes, obviously, but this is a negative impact. And I think there again, particularly at the upcoming cabinet meeting next month, great opportunity, because on the agenda for that meeting, they want to hear from council about tourism generally and the impacts. This is another example of increase in visitations, increase in tourism. You're going to be, and the government's strongly pushing for this, certainly in Island, certainly in Freycinet.
Yeah.
And so, you're left with these challenges of increased numbers. So you're quite right, Councillor Edwards. It's not just a council.
We're left carrying the can.
Yeah.
And I am aware that our Director of Works and Infrastructure is more than aware of the problem. So it will remain on council. It will remain on council's radar to talk to.
Well, I wasn't having to dig at anyone, I can assure you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor McQueenie.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor. Did you?
I'm going to say you're on a different topic or the same topic.
No, the original topic actually.
I'll just make a real quick comment on the Blackwater dump at Coles Bay. Can we as a council make inquiries to Parks to make sure it's not in their master plan? Because that development they're doing on the entrance to town may well have that Blackwater dump in it. So we just need to clarify whether that is part of their master plan.
Now, Councillor McQueenie.
Through you, Mayor. So back to the question of the solids, can I just confirm that the toilet is intended to be an all abilities toilet?
It's more than I can tell you.
In the draft plan we see, hasn't nobody seen the draft plan? Okay. Also on the issue of disability, the emergency management resourcing audit that's going to happen, who's actually driving that? And do we know the terms of the scope of that? Because when you come to emergency management, then obviously handling populations where disability is an issue is important. So I just want to know how comprehensive the audit is.
Mr. Porch, I believe you indicated that you could have a response in relation to Councillor McQueen's first part of the question.
That's correct, Madam Mayor. Yes, the facility will be an auditable.
Fantastic. The second part of your question, Councillor McQueenie, General Manager.
So just to you, Madam Mayor, that was generally about the audit and whether it is identifying.
Who it is that's doing it and what their terms of reference or scope is.
I'll refer to the director again.
Would you mind just repeating that?
Just in terms of the 20 councils that there's some effort to look at auditing the resourcing of emergency management. Within that, who is it that's, if you like, funding or progressing that work? And do we have their scope of reference? I know, for instance, Clarence Council's worked closely around the issue and developed plans about disability and emergency management. And so I'm wanting to know and understand or hope that the audit includes the issue of disability responses within emergency management.
So, through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding of that audit is to audit council's capacity to deliver the requirements of the Emergency Management Act.
Okay. All right. And do we know who's?
It is, Madam Mayor, through the Local Government Association of Tasmania.
Thank you. Just two quick comments. First, that just to commend the council at about 1 o'clock last weekend, I'm not sure if it's Saturday or Sunday, 1 a.m, a tree was noticed to be down across Revon Road and Strawberry Hills Road. And by 9 o'clock the next morning it was gone. So it was just a great effort.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Porch?
Thank you. Councillor Edwards touched on the one about the pavements that in my opinion, favours. So clearly that's in hand. Yes. The other one is with the new subdivision on Esplanade East, where Drake's property was. They've done footpaths in the subdivision, and there's an area from where the subdivision finishes to where a council-owned footpath is. Is that going to be connected by, a proper footpath instead of this tacky gravel?
Madam Mayor. This is one of those areas where it's important to have a little bit of flexibility in the budget for programs to fill the gaps. So the development, great. It provides footpath along the frontages, so we get those ultimately donated to council at the end of the day. We take care of those, and because we can only require the developers to go so far, we end up with these gaps. We do have the funds to be able to fill those gaps. They're not large, but that will, again, it enhances that area over there significantly to be able to provide that continuous footpath all around that area. So yes, that is the intent.
And furthermore to that, will the footpath that's coming down Selwyn Street and exiting straight onto the road be cut off? Because when you come down that hill and the footpath stops right on the road and it crosses over to nowhere. So maybe that can have a bit of a tweak of redesign. And sorry. And the other question is with regards to the development going up in Selwyn Street up the top there. Now, we all know that the road it's got a situation with regards to the weather and so on and so forth, but the traffic movement that's up that road now has severely, in my opinion, wrecked the road and the crossovers and the footpath. Are the people that are doing that, or the contractors doing that, are they responsible for the repair of the road, or is that something that council has to pick up?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there's a bit of a three-way process there. So we have, first of all, the work from Taswater at the top of the hill,
That's right.
which contributed somewhat to that as well. We'd identified some issues around the condition of the road at the time and noted the extra stresses that were going to be put on it. Additionally, with the development, there's a requirement for them to make good for the damage that they have. And thirdly is our own program, whereby we'd say, well, look, the road was pretty much at the end, how close was it to the end of its life? And looking to get a contribution from those to work together to make good to that road section up there, certainly in very poor condition at the moment. There's been other works from Taswater, upgrading stormwater mains and things, which has led to a program of works around their repairing roads. We've worked pretty closely with Taswater and their contractors to get adequate repair done from their works. And there's been some work, some of that is damage from their contractors. So anything they haven't repaired will still be done. We're still working closely with them, and Taswater won't give them practical completion until such time as we're satisfied with the repairs.
Yeah.
Working with all parties involved in that area to get.
And a couple of years ago, they put underground power up in that area, so that may have contributed to more wear and tear, because it's general wear and tear of people going to their homes is not going to do that to a road and or a crossover. So that again is in hand as well. That's it. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Just another quick one.
Councillor Woods, if I may, just before I go to you again, General Manager, I understand you have some comments in relation to reseal that goes directly to Councillor Woods' question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and also to Councillor Edwards' earlier question or comment. So just so that councillors are aware, with our contract arrangements with external contractors that do work for council, we have what we call maintenance periods on those works. So what that basically means is a contract will finish, whatever work it is, on a certain date. That's called practical completion. And then for a period of 12 months after that, generally it's around 12 months, any failures that are deemed to be at the contractor's fault or any remedial work that's required in that period is actually done, is actually remediated by the contractor. The reseal situation is probably a case in point. We're talking to the contractor now about works that have surface works that have failed.
But if I may,
Yes.
further to that
Yes.
comment, if I may, the one that at outside the IGA tribe is down to gravel in areas. That's just not ideal. And I know we've had some hot days, but seriously, I mean, the roads that were built before this, they didn't melt and fall away and do all that sort of stuff. Whereas this is, quite poor.
Take that on board, councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Young, would you like?
Just a question directed to the General Manager and Director of Works, Mr. Porge. Does council obtain a bond from the developer to ensure that the works are in fact carried out, so that in the event that the works are not satisfactorily carried out and we have some difficulties in dealing with contractors, and not every contractor is as financial as they were once, we'd have some security to fall back on? One question.
Madam Mayor, the answer is yes. The works are constructed, and once they reach practical completion, we at that stage require a bond for a 12-month maintenance period, and the titles are not issued until such time.
Thank you very
As
much.
one of the requirements.
Councillor Edwards has asked a question, so I'm going to ask any other councillors that haven't spoken if they have any questions or comments in relation to this report. Councillor Parker, and I'll come back to you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Going on from what Councillor Wood said, as you were aware, I live next door, except for a block between me and Dublin. It's not just the roadways, the contractors, however, for quite some time have been parking on the footpath. I started walking my dog around the other morning. I gave up because it was too dangerous. So it's also the footpath the council needs to look at, because you're talking about an area that's going to have 55 and over, and honestly, I don't know why they done that. That's such a steep hill, and as I said, I can no longer walk it. So the council just got to be careful that they're going to be a liability. The other thing is, I don't know why this council hasn't done this. And I've raised it before with certain councillors. It's like when the woodchip mill was operating, contractors pay a toll, road toll, and it goes back up to the Elmer Road when I had to shop there. The way that was torn up by the trucks going up and back and forth. Same with this situation. We have truck drivers that don't live in this community, that municipality, are tearing up our road, but yet paying no toll for using the road. And I just think it's something council should look at further down the track, or just getting something like that.
Now, I certainly recall back from years ago when the bill, Councillor Parker, I can certainly remember something around that. I don't think it's something that council can impose now under the Roads and Jetties Act or something like that. I might be wrong, but if that on the right path here.
No, you're on the right path, Madam Mayor. I think a road is designed, any public road is designed for a certain life. Generally, sealed roads are designed for 30 years. Those roads can be impacted by any type of traffic that is authorised to be on a road. So as long as it's a licensed vehicle, matter its size, and it can be on the road. There's more and more need these days, I suppose, with bigger and bigger vehicles and heavier loads, to constantly look at road designs and strengthen those designs, as opposed to the old days where we had lighter vehicles and less traffic. So, but to impose a tax or a whatever we want to call it, a fee for someone to use a road under the legislation, unfortunately, can't do it. The road controlling authority.
And I suspect Councillor Parker, it's probably something that council needs to be mindful of, and it's something that we need to continually raise with the government in relation, because they in lots of cases are the road. We need to. Councillor Churchill.
Just a quick one there, thank you. The contract work that's been done on Dolphin Sands Road, the slashing of the sides of the road, been done very well, except for large amount of damage to the guideposts up there. The soft plastic guideposts, there's been quite a number of them smashed. I'm wondering how that is structured into that contract, or is that our own services doing it, or what's the story on replacement of those? Whose cost is it?
The Porch, is this you?
Mayor, that is me. It's not me specifically, but the replacement of the guidepost will certainly sit within my portfolio, and we'd be talking to the contractor about that. Certainly, damage to infrastructure in the course of the work shouldn't be occurring, or if it is, it should be paid for. So we'll be to the contractor about the issues that has led to that, and if there aren't significantly good, then place those guideposts.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? I'm going to allow Councillor Edwards another question if anybody else has spoken.
Just quick comments, really. And I'm sure the people at Swannock will be very pleased to know that there's some money floating around to finish unfinished footpaths. Their path to nowhere hopefully will be addressed. There was just a beautiful job resealing outside the Bowls Club in Orford. It was down for 15 minutes and they dug it up to put pipes across the road, which was a bit disappointing. And just back to the Sharrett Springs Beach, is there any indication of when that may be next summer, or when may that be?
Really, Madam Mayor, I'd expect I believe we have the shower components. We're just waiting on the contractor for the tank, and it's my expectation that it would be in before the end of this summer.
Yep.
Hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yep, cool. No, thank you.
Councillor Young.
Mr. Porch again. I hope the shower's not going to be hot water.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it will depend on the temperature of the day as it will be.
Exactly.
Well, maybe a bit of a solar copper panel on the circular on the
Cold
right
and
wall.
Yeah.
Thank you. If there's no further questions for Mr. Porch, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. Agenda item 7.2 is the Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Woodward's report. There is a recommendation on page 25. Councillor Woods.
Yes, I'll move that council receive and note the report on the activities on the planning and development directorate.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Churchill, thank you. Questions for Mr. Woodward?
I suspect he's going to be level.
I'll ask him to ask a question.
Right, Councillor Churchill, would you?
It was just in, again, I'll have to look up my attachment. In the attachments for the representations received for the DA attachment 7.2.1. There's just an interesting issue here that I think should be acknowledged and brought to the attention of the meeting. That is,
What page is that?
it's page 11 is and it's 0.6. I share the, I guess, the frustration of the representative who has talked about the structure plan as one of his issues in his representation. And the comment that's been made, actually, the officer's comment 0.6 there says the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, GSBC, does not provide a clause for structure plans to be considered. Now, I think we're at a point where our structure plans are being considered at great expense. And I think this whole issue needs to be very carefully examined, or we're going to be wasting a whole lot of money on structure plans. Because this points out quite clearly that those elements of the structure plan that we might think are worthwhile from a planning point of view have no carriage at all until that is moved into the Tasmanian Planning Scheme, GSBC. So we know there's an expense, a cost relates to that. But I think we should at least move forward being aware and knowing that large components of those structure plans are going to be totally useless if we do not attach them to our local provision schedule. That was just a point I wanted to make.
Would you like to offer any comment or just take on board Councillor Churchill's comments?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that corrects. Yes, the structure plan in itself through the planning scheme has to be action taken to incorporate that into the etc.
Any questions, Councillor Young?
Just to Mr. Woodward, medical centres on page 24, we're due to receive an annual report in due course. Have you got any interim comment on how the operation of the centres appear to be working at the minute?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, by all accounts, it's progressing quite well. I had a discussion last week with the practice manager just to have a chat around where they're at with things. The practice manager indicated that they're getting a longer term fill-in at Bicheno to replace Dr. Kelly, who moved overseas. So I think that'll be a 6 month role from what I understand. So that's a good thing for the Bicheno community. Certainly helping with them. They gained accreditation at the Triabunna practice So that was another positive for them.
Well, that's Dr. Iati, is it?
That's between Dr. Ayardi and Dr. Johnson,
Yeah.
who are still continuing on. And by all accounts, they're still very busy, but they're continuing to look at resources and additional GPs. But by all accounts, it's travel.
Thank you very much.
If I may, Councillor Young, just following on from that, as a patient of that, of Bunner, I'm very impressed with the money, the ability, I was able to get an appointment in a very short space of time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Very,
I
very.
might move.
Any other questions or comments in relation to Mr. Woodward's report? Nothing further? Okay, I'll put all those in favour. Against, carried unanimously. Agenda item 8 is officers' reports requiring a decision. 8.1 is in principle support for the South East Mountain Bike Trail. There is a recommendation on page 27, and we have quite a comprehensive report. Councillor Edwards.
The council endorses the general manager to provide a letter of support to CERDA for the South East Mountain Bike Trail.
Is seconded, Deputy Mayor Simons, thank you. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Edwards?
I think it's self-explanatory. Great.
In there, do you wish to make any comment?
Yeah, just echo Councillor Edwards' comments. Yeah, it's a good
Any other
project.
questions or comments, Councillor Churchill?
I'd just like to make a comment that I think it's fantastic the way the large part of this is the use of the existing forestry trails and fire trails. The component of it, which seems to me to be not only sensible and economic, but it's probably environmentally a very good way to go. I'm impressed with that feature.
And I suspect too, Councillor Churchill, the other side of it is that by utilising those, they're actually keeping those fire trails on that open, which is really important in that area. Any other questions or comments on this agenda item? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. 8.2 is the disposal of council land at Spencer Street, Tribunna. There is a recommendation on page 33. Councillor Churchill.
I move that council receive and note the responses received during the process conducted under section 178 of the Local Government Act 1993 for 25 to 35 Spencer Street, Tribunna. Title reference 55156/25-35. 2, having considered all the submissions and objections received, approve the disposal of the public land by way of exchange, sale or lease in whole or in part. And 3, authorise the general manager to take any actions necessary to give effect to the disposal of the public land.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Woods, thank you. Councillor Churchill, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I think it's apparent that this land is not of any strategic value to council. And if we can turn that into cash that might be able to be used strategically, as it's stated in the reports, I think this is a really good move on the part of council.
Councillor Woods, do you wish to make any comment?
Just to echo what Councillor Churchill said.
Any other questions or comments in relation to the motion? Councillor Parker?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Concerned with some of the patients that we received. And my concern was, one of them was regarding social housing. I noticed in the response to it saying that council can't have all over that. Council puts that in the guidelines for the sale. You can put it in and say it's not going to have social housing on it. I think the hill up where I live by the Church of England, which is 38 going in there, that's for low housing. The government is trying to push these houses to be built within a certain amount of time. But I just feel that it's pushing people, Tribunna, the elderly and so on, of living with the fear that what may become a tribunal with all this housing developments happening here.
Thank you, General Manager. Can you any comment around that, or Mr. Woodward on?
the only comment I can make is that I don't believe, Madam Mayor, that council can have control over limiting the type of development on the land in that respect. But I'm happy to hear Director.
Mr. Woodward, it come down to covenants, wouldn't it, which we don't have on those titles? Would that be reasonable assumption?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I believe that, I don't believe that you can actually place a covenant to restrict it for that type of housing and so forth. So essentially, I don't really have that.
Under the land use planning scheme, Councillor Parker, it's unlikely that we would be able to do that, I think, but we've certainly, I know the staff have certainly taken on board the concerns of their representatives. So this land is being sold under a process, a legislative process. Any other questions or comments? Close debate, Councillor Churchill? No. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Item 8.3 is the appointment of the emergency management coordinators. There is a recommendation on page 37. Councillor Woods.
Thank you. I'll move that council nominate Mr. Peter Porch as a municipal emergency management coordinator. His name be forwarded to the Minister for Police and Emergency Management via the State Emergency Management Controller as per section 23(1) of the Emergency Management Act 2006. And 2, nominate Mr. Darren Smith as Deputy Municipal Emergency Manager Coordinator with his name to be forwarded to the Minister for Police and Emergency Management via the State Emergency Management Controller as per section 23(1) of the Emergency Management Act 2006 and recommend the appointments for the period of 3 years as per section 23(4) of the Emergency Management Act 2000.
Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Simons. Councillor Woods, to speak to the motion.
Other than they could try and do something better about writing out, there's a lot of emergencies in.
Hope we don't have too many.
No, all I would like to say to that, in all seriousness, is I'm aware that Mr. Porch has been a part of a couple of emergency managements in the past and done a terrific job. And the same with Darren Smith, and I would like to wish them well and congratulate them. Yes.
Deputy Mayor, any comment? Any other comment? Councillor Young?
Madam Mayor, I would like to reiterate Councillor Wood's comment. I think of two better people. I don't know the point.
And I can only concur with the comments, having worked with Mr. Porch during our recent emergencies at Dolphin Sands and Coles Bay. I certainly support the motion at night. I will put the motion for the vote in favour. Those against, carried unanimously. Item 8.4 is the audit panel charter. The General Manager, before I move to the recommendation that is on page 39, I understand that we have some further information on this particular matter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, there have, the Mayor has raised some valid comments about the charter review. And I have since had discussions with the chair of the audit panel. And I had suggested to the Mayor that we defer this matter to the next agenda, or at least until the audit panel has had time to discuss those comments.
We will seek a motion to defer agenda item. Councillor.
Thank you. Given the information just received, I will move that this matter is 8.4 be deferred to the next meeting. I'll just be deferred.
Yes, just thank you, defer, because we're, if I'm
I'll
seconded,
second that.
seconded
That's
councillor Young
Peter's.
and councillor Woods. Just for clarification, we're not sure whether the audit panel will be able to review the charter, the panel data before the February meeting.
Yes, so it's just-
so it will be as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 8.5 is a request for event support the Spoke Festival. Now, there is a recommendation on page 43, but again, the General Manager has further information around this, which I would like him to advise council, because we're looking like a deferral motion on this one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Information has come to light, and I've followed up on that information just today, just before the meeting actually. That suggests that there needs to be consideration given to the potential impacts of this event, particularly in the environmental space. And I'm going to need to get some advice on that, or I think council should be approving support for the event. So it's a recommendation that it can, if we defer this to the February meeting, we still have time to, now that the event's in March, early March, we still have time to notify the event organiser.
Thank you, councillor Churchill.
I move that the matter be deferred to the February meeting.
Seconded, councillor McQueenie, thank you. It will be deferred, councillor Edwards, so there is no, this is just, if you like, a procedural motion, so
There's no comments.
there will be I didn't encourage you to ask comments of the General Manager between now and the February meeting, if you want further information.
I do.
So I'll put the motion for deferral. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Edwards is against the deferral. The motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 8.6 is the late agenda item, which is the Echo Festival. There is an amended recommendation report. The amended recommendation is, I believe, on page 10 of the page 10, I think, of the. No, I'm sorry, it's on page 6 of the amended report. Councillor Churchill.
I move that council approve the application for event support from East Coast Arts and Events Tasmania Limited, Echo Festival, in the form of $4,000 cash contribution and in-kind support to deliver 12 bins for waste management as resources permit.
At 4,000, councillor,
4,000.
it's double what
Yes.
the recommendation is.
Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Young. Councillor Churchill, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would, Mayor, thank you. This event has been going now for a number of years. I fully appreciate that, and I do understand that some of the community view this as an elite event. However, it is probably the leading event that Swansea has, and we haven't supported it every year in its previous development, and I know that in previous years we've supported it in financial terms to a lower figure. I think the most we've given was $2,000 or something like that. I think it's a worthwhile event, and I at least know that currently the events budget can handle that. And I would just like to see it supported. As I say, I think it is a really valuable event to try to continue in Swansea. Thank you.
Speaker against the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I won't be supporting the motion today, but the reason is that it's not consistent with how we support other events of similar size and nature in our community. So I'm afraid I have to be guided by what we've done previously with those amounts.
For or against, councillor Young and then councillor Parker.
Madam Mayor, I agonised a bit over the particular seeking of support for this event. And looking at the operation, it involves not only one entity, but there are a number of contributing businesses from the Morgan Spring Bay municipality, the operation. There is some expense to people that might get involved, but there are a series of businesses that would otherwise not have the benefit by the operation of this entity and spreads the grant more or less far and wide, a bit more than some car show or something brought in from outside the community. Support a substantial increase in the grant.
Councillor Parker, then councillor McQueenie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't be supporting Councillor Birchall's recommendation. To me, it goes against what the officer's recommendation was. Don't want to seen as not supporting council staff.
Councillor McQueenie.
Yeah, I've just got a question. Your comment, councillor Churchill, about the events within Swansea. What is the scope of those on an annual basis? Like how many festivals? We have Fish No Beans, and we have Squid Fest down here. What does Swansea have?
There's just not a lot.
Yeah.
They up on the tail of the Paint the Town Red.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
state-wide festival. Most of the other things, they have got a half show every year, and not every year. They're trying to develop.
Yeah.
I can't think of any others. Some
Yeah.
others, people in the chamber might know of other major events, but this is really the prime event
Yeah.
that is run for Swansea,
Yeah.
I guess. I totally understand the discussion around the room. I totally understand that, but I think that while I don't have the financial detail behind all this, I think it's an event that's potentially financially having difficulties. The best that, and I just would like to see it supported through, hopefully through a period where it'll get to be self-funding. That's the way we should be looking at all of these, I guess, events that are, if you like, expensive people to attend. It's just my view that it's something that I feel I personally have to support for Swansea, and I do take quite an interest in the Chamber of Commerce in Swansea, so I get a bit of an idea of what's going on around the issues there. I think it'd be sad if the one isn't supported, however, the decision for a change.
Well, another festival, you want to call that, is the Business Folk Festival, which deals with probably a different demographic goes to the Echo Festival. They're asking for $2,500. Echo is asking $5,000. I see in 2022 we gave them 2,200, in 2023 we gave them 1,000. I'd be happy to support the $2,500, but not the extra amount.
Councillor Woods.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm hearing what Councillor Churchill was saying, and to a degree agree. However, $4,000 is quite a bit when it's been a festival that's been going for quite some time, a long time, some time. it sort of opens the floodgates up for that amount of money to be asked for, which possibly don't have. So, the money that we do have, goes to equally to all events in my thoughts. Another thing within the report on page 6 under dot point, the first dot point, it says council will provide a supply of bins to be used for each bin, which with any unused bin line is returned to. So I think they've missed out a word. It says council will provide a supply of bins to be used for each bin, with any unused bin line is returned. So I'm just letting everybody know I actually do read the agenda.
Excuse me, do you mean lining?
Yeah, so if that could be rectified.
For the minutes, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you for that. Councillor McQueenie.
Yeah, look, I'm just listening to the conversation.
Councillor McQueenie, can I just remind you that we are in a formal meeting, and it's not conversation, but I will allow a second question from you. You have spoken on this matter?
Last question.
Yes, that's right.
And I've got a comment to make.
Okay, I'll allow it.
I think there's a reason, or there's value in council particularly thinking about not just equal for all festivals, but what the segments of the community that those festivals reach, or the nature of those festivals. So there's a lot of sporting type things, for instance, that attract sport and recreation funding as well. I don't know that we've ever had that receive more events versus a spread of others that, have a focus, for instance, around sport or recreation.
So if I may, General Manager, I'll butt in here a little bit. I think the 5,000, and I take on board your comments, Councillor Churchill. I take on board your comments, and I certainly commend you for your support for the Eco Festival. I think the original recommendation of $5,000 came about on the back of a suggestion that council could become a gold sponsor, if you like, well, whatever colour you want to align to it. And so it was assessed around that particular criteria, if you like. I know the General Manager had some conversations around it and expressed concern. I put some words in your mouth, General Manager, but expressed some concern around the fact that, as the Deputy Mayor said, we have supported events out of our budget for around the $2,500 for a long time. I think, taking on board Councillor McQueenie's comment, we are now at a point where we need to look at the protocols around assessing events so that we can spread our event money over a large number. It doesn't necessarily follow that it has to be the same amount to every event, if they can provide us with some detail around what they're actually looking for. But we have to get some assessment criteria in place. Right now, we don't have that robust assessment criteria. And so that's why we came back to this amended recommendation of $2,000, so that it brings it in line with how we've treated other events over the last, let's say, 12 months or so. And the staff will now, going forward, move into a process where we can get some robust criteria assessment tools, and in the future we may be able to provide extra money to certain events around it. Now, is that a fair summation of your thoughts, General Manager?
I think you've covered it quite well, Madam Mayor. I just want to add that up to now, we as a council, as officers, have assessed without criteria that the mayor mentioned. We've assessed these to the best of our ability with some guidelines, if you like. We've certainly, and I know this council has discussed previously about having a policy around this, and we've, to this point in time, avoided doing that. And I'm only saying avoided doing that in the sense that once council has a policy in place over anything, the policy has to be abided by, obviously, and it can become, especially with matters like this, quite restrictive. We don't want to end up, I'm sure council would agree, we don't want to end up in a situation where we are not able to support the community because we have as much as we would like, because we have restrictions around the policy. In saying that, I agree with, and the mayor and I have had discussions around this. We do need perhaps some more robust guidelines about how we assess one event against another, because the events are totally different. You can't even develop. When you think about, comparing a food and wine festival to the triathlon to Echo, it's really, I think, in council's mind around potentially, I'm just suggesting this for future consideration, that we as a council identify, I know we've had this discussion before, 4 or 5 events in our municipality that we identify as premium events, if you like, and that we commit to funding those events to a certain dollar value. And those are premium events. And then there may be other money in the budget that is available for smaller events. So I'm not suggesting that we have 27,000 currently in the budget for events. I'm not suggesting that all goes on premium events, but you could split it between premium and up and coming. Because don't forget, a lot of these events that council has supported started off small, and actually they're going quite well with council and other support. So I think we have to recognise that as well, that whilst an event may be new, it's quite right that council wants to support it to a degree, see it grow, and then entertain a greater support at a later stage.
General Manager, can I just interrupt you there? This conversation is for a later time in terms of, I know it's important for the councillors to understand how we got to this amended version or this amended recommendation. We need to have a conversation in a workshop around the protocol.
So the only thing I'd like to add, sorry, Mayor, is just that in terms of the budget, there's budget. There's budget to support. Someone made a comment about it, but there is budget to support the motion.
Sure.
Madam Mayor, a procedural matter. By the look of the discussion around the room, this motion may not get up, and that means the application will be lost and it won't be supported. May I suggest that you invite or some sort of foreshadowed motion so that the application for funding is not completely.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'd like to move a amended motion.
Yes.
Yep. I'd like to move that council approves the application for event support East Coast Arts and Events Tasmania Ltd Echo Festival in the $2,000 cash contribution and in-kind support to 12 bins for waste management as resources permit.
Do I have a second, Councillor Parker, for that's for the amended motion? Yes. Thank you. Councillor Simons, Deputy Mayor Simons, do you wish to speak to your amended motion, or have we had sufficient?
I think we've had sufficient discussion.
Any other questions or comments in relation to the amended motion?
I have one comment, sorry, which I should say, it's a very worthwhile event that needs support from council, but it's got to be in keeping with what we've done previously until we do formulate a set of rules that we can follow that help guide ourselves in this.
Yeah, totally concur. I think the Echo Festival, as Councillor Churchill very rightly said, does bring a lot to the Swansea community, and if we support them this year in this process, then there is a future going ahead, I think. So on that basis, I will put the amended motion. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Young and Councillor Churchill are against. The amended motion becomes the substantive motion. I'll put the motion, okay? Councillor Deputy Mayor Simons, you may need to read it again as the substantive motion, please.
I'll move that council approve the application for grant support for East Coast Arts and Events Tasmania Limited Eco Festival in the form of 2,000 cash contribution and in-kind support, 12 bins for waste management as resources.
The motion, all those in favour? Those against? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 9 is notices of motion. There are no notices of motion. Agenda item 10 is the petitions. There are no petitions. Item 11 is councillors. Questions on notice for councillors. There are none. Agenda item 11.2 is comments by councillors. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be reading today. What I'm about to talk about are my observations only. Dates and times can be questioned. We as councillors are presented with a myriad of information from qualified engineers and the likes on many topics, and we need to make decisions on the advice given. Some will read it differently to others, and when it comes to the time to making a decision within a council meeting, if put to the vote, and if it's won or lost, as we all know, it becomes a motion. The decision of council. In around 2013-14, council were talking about the stabilisation of the Prosser River mouth and the mouth as the mouth was closing up, and the community of Orford were voicing their concerns about the fact that they couldn't launch their boats in the Prosser River and go through the mouth of the river safely, and what the roll-on effects of that would do to the town. Council took this on board, and subsequently a report was produced and presented to council from Burberry Consulting. Over time, we had many discussions and workshops about the issue and how to fix the problem. Eventually, and I'm not sure of the time, council was presented with a solution to fix the issue by way of qualified advice from qualified engineers and professionals alike. We received a report on the situation in subsequent council agenda. It was then a council decision, which I supported on the professional advice from the qualified organisations and council staff, to go with the solution of the geotech bags to open the river mouth to keep it open for the years to come. Have been left with is an abject failure of a system that is completely disastrous, in my opinion. I have walked that area many times over the years, and the changes have been quite surprising. This past weekend, I went out on a boat and saw it from the water, and what I saw was, again, an abject failure of a system that was supposed to last at least 25 years before any minor or major maintenance was needed. Through weather systems, the bags have either moved or sunk or been smothered by sand. The safety of the boat users is again at the forefront of the issues, and in my opinion, we are back to where we started over 10 years ago. My point is that sometimes the qualified advice we receive can fail and can be wrong, but we need to and have to make decisions on what we receive on any development that are presented to us. And sometimes the advice can be defective for what is to come into the future. And that's good, bad, or indifferent. Thank you, councillors.
I would agree with you, Councillor Woods, though, in relation to the bags, because I have a vague recollection, probably not vague, it's probably quite right actually, of being told that council had no role in determining that the bags were going to be. So, well said. Appreciate the comments.
Thank you.
Councillor Young.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Woods. I had cause over Christmas to be particularly aware of the troubles because I had primary age grandchildren swimming there during the change of tide. I had to be warned about the narrowing of the passage increasing with the result of increasing current. And that didn't exist before the bags. But I've owned a place on the east coast of Tasmania for 47 years. And I also had to warn my primary school grandchildren that come from Victoria, where there's not much current, if anything, especially around Melbourne, even if you are brave enough to swim in the Yarra River, that if they got caught and there was trouble, don't try and get up the bags, because they're not sure that the factual matters that Councillor Wood raised about the consultant were necessarily correct, because I suspect that the control of the building of the estuary, I suppose you could call it, the narrowing and the bag. I'm not sure that they that the control which vested in MAST and not council, that's Marine and Safety Tasmania, actually followed the plan that the hydraulic engineer prepared. They might have done, but I've got no doubts about it. But thank you, Councillor Wood, for raising the matter. It's of current concern.
General Manager, if I may, I think what Councillor Wood, I know the context in which Councillor Woods raised this matter, but I think it's also particularly important for us as a council to take on board those comments and for staff to have further comment with authorities in that area. I know that the bags are part of licensing, Parks and Wildlife, Crown Land, that area ownership. So if I may, could I ask you to take on board Councillor Woods' comments and have a review of that particular area?
I think, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to comment on that. I'm certainly, and the administration is certainly appreciative of the support that council gave through the development of the offshore master plan, which included the bird sanctuary and the Prosser River mouth area. And that was really around the discussions we had around licenses and lease arrangements. And you will recall that council was quite rightly concerned about taking over a lease or a license that included the sandbags and what would come of that. We're in a situation today where we have a very functional and workable master plan that does not include, for council anyway, any obligations to keep the navigation channel or the Prosser River mouth open. I think that's the first point that needs to be made, and that's a really important one, because the failure there has been quite rapid and quite severe. We can certainly, Madam Mayor, MAST would be the appropriate agency to deal with, to contact, in terms of what are the plans, what are the thoughts around the navigation channel. That's okay.
And if I may, General Manager, now that Councillor Woods has raised it, and I know it is a significant concern in the community, Councillor Dick Larson and formal Austin, and again, I understand the context in which you raised it, Councillor, but I think it's a really important matter that we need to deal with. Any other comments or questions at agenda item 11.2? Councillor Young, then Councillor Edwards.
There's one matter. I was able to obtain a copy of the Hobart City Council corporate governance rules, I suppose you could say, and they provide a form of indemnity to elected members and officers to cover them for the very remote possibility that the elected members and officers receive claims against them. And we are in a position where in the former council last term, there were a number of council elected representatives that had what I consider, from the little that I was able to glean, bogus claims raised against them under the rules of conduct, the codes of conduct, alleged breaches. It cost some councillors many thousands of dollars just to get legal advice in order to deal with a matter that came before the various tribunals. And there are courts, codes of conduct tribunals. I would urge that, Madam Mayor, that you put the issue of directors and officers indemnity on a workshop, or the matter to be considered in a bit more length than we have in the past.
General Manager, have they been trained?
To you, Madam Mayor, we have, in fact, we have had a workshop on this before. We've had the insurance people present at a workshop. But we've also had legal advice around this matter. I thought we had done more than enough in terms of providing advice to council. If I'll be guided by council, if you certainly not much as you may think it's a high priority, I apologise. It's not a high priority for me, but if you want it to become a high priority, I will again expend resources to explore your concerns, Councillor Young.
Councillor Young, can I just say
Yes.
That in this particular section, this section's designed to have councillors to have the opportunity to put to them. It isn't really a debate session. So if we could just take on board your comments.
That's all I propose to say.
Yeah, we can talk to the General Manager afterwards. So thank you for raising it. It is very clearly something that concerns you and indeed other councillors. So I think we need to go forward with that one as well. Councillor Edwards.
Just back to Councillor Wood's comments, which I fully concur with. I think the take-home message from that for me was, even though we have qualified advice and engineers' advice and advice from all and sundry, even if we disagree, we are in many cases not allowed to disagree. And at the risk, if we voted no, at the risk of having massive costs awarded against us. And this is the issue. I'm sure a lot of the councillors back in the day would have liked to have voted against the bags, but can't. And I think that is something that an awful lot of ratepayers don't know. Well, you can, at the risk of then going in front of the planning commission and having a ruling against you and paying a bill. And that's the worry.
Any other questions or comments? This is a specific comment. This section is for specific comment in relation to a matter that may have been raised by the community. Councillor Parker.
And it goes back to what Councillor Edward said. Blame can't be landed on this council, previous council, which I was part of that. We saw the issues there from day one, and we asked for put a rock wall in instead of the bags. We were left with no option. It was either one way, that their way, or no way. And yep, we went with what option it was, and that was the bags.
Any other questions or comments for councillors' comments or statements? Further, I'll move on. Agenda item 12 is the confidential items in accordance with the requirements for the local government meeting procedure regulations 2015. As Mayor, I declare the meeting closed to the public in order to discuss the following matters. Item 1, minutes of the closed session of the ordinary council meeting on the 12th of December. Item 2 is an application for leave of absence, and item 3 will be the General Manager's key performance indicators. There is a recommendation. Councillor Woods, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll move that council moves into closed session at 3:26 p.m.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Parker, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you.